Hey everybody, and welcome to the Webcomics Shortcast episode 2, where I talk with the owners and operators of Macroverse, a subscription service for high-quality webcomics, such as Remind by Jason Brubaker. They hope to create a sort of a HBO of webcomics, and I was quite interested in that, and I thought, we could get a little chat, learn about them, and learn more about their stance to some issues that, at the time of recording, were relevant to the comics industry. This intro is currently being recorded in post due to some production issues. Most of the audio in the actual recorded cast should be intact. I hope you enjoy it, and I'll see you on the other side. First, from a friend of mine that's currently working with you, full disclosure.
Great.
Jay, I think you know who Jay is, Espen, who makes Aerosol.
Yeah, awesome.
Yeah, really good friend of mine. I've known him for a while. He actually was the first person to tell me about you guys. I just want to know how you guys got to where you are with this whole website idea. Like, you don't just open a website and go, I'm going to make...
Just make apps. Yeah, right. Exactly.
Yes. I really like Java, guys.
Well, if we're starting, then I want to give a tiny bit of context as I'm about to throw Adam under the bus. I usually answer this question. So this is I have this whole story that I usually tell about this part of the question. I want to hear Adam's version of it. So if anybody wants to hear my version of it, there's a bunch of places that we've talked about it, but I want to hear Adam's version of it so we can get a
really
parallel
funny.
Universe.
Exactly. Well, especially parallel universe, we haven't actually been in the same room together, of course, for 3 months, whereas we're normally together, at least 2-3 times a week, even though we live 15 minutes away,
Yeah.
So no, basically, Eben and I met, 18, almost 19 years ago, funnily enough, when Eben recruited me into a network marketing company. And over the course of working together in that, the company went by the wayside a long time ago, but he and I stayed friends and realized that, I have been in the physical production for 20 something years now. So as assistant director in film and television, and then Eben comes from kind of illustration design, web design, all that, that, creative art side of things. And we just realized that we both wanted to do the same kind of thing. We both wanted to make stuff. We wanted to do interesting things in the entertainment industry as a whole, and started writing together. And then we had the opportunity to start making motion comics on a project, right? So they were kind of hot for a while, and we figured out that we had this we brought this interesting kind of confluence of skills together, basically, with approaching motion comics for original material by kind of working into the comic from the animated version of it. So approaching it like filmmaking as opposed to like comics, and then telling the story from there. And so we had some success, I think, in the motion comic field, doing video game cutscenes and whatever else.
Yeah.
And while we were kind of doing that, Eben basically went and produced, got the rights to produce a Boondock Saints comic. Do you know the Boondock Saints movie?
Yeah, I know Boondock Saints.
It's fantastic, right? It's great stuff. So Eben went and basically got the rights to produce a comic series based on that. And as he was doing that, we were working together and stuff, and it was just the kind of the frustrations and challenges that came along with the kind of traditional comics production process and the monopoly that is Diamond and all that stuff. Over that process, we started talking about, well, what would a kind of digital version of this be? What would an app-based, a truly kind of interesting app-based comics reader be?
Yeah.
We looked at kind of Comixology, we looked at some of the other competitors out there, and a lot of them are basically PDF readers.
A lot of them are. I think the only real big difference is Webtoon, Tapas, and if you pay attention to the scanlation market. I don't know if you know about those guys.
I have scroll on. Is that what you're talking about?
No, the scanlation guys. So the guys who steal Japanese comics and then translate them because they have the biggest. It's a weird thing to say, but they're your biggest competitors.
Yeah. No, it's right. Absolutely.
Yes. Yeah. Interesting. Yes, because we, I think so. What happened was, we started kind of experimenting and toying around with stuff and how would this work and what can we do, and we tried a few things. And then actually a couple of years ago, having kind of been, it was constantly in the background, we had this series Dead Town that has been in our minds. We've had scripts written, comic series written for 10 years or so now. And we finally found an artist who we felt could do that. and started working with him on that and realized, okay, if we're producing this anyway, let's use this as a kind of example of what we think we can do with this tap story concept that we've kind of developed. Yeah. And so having done that with him and got up to kind of the first season of that, we then last year turned around. We always knew we wanted to make it multi-title. We then turned around and were able to kind of put the resources into making the version that you see now, basically.
Okay, so it's basically you've already made. That's answered two questions for me. So you made like the app, the website for something else entirely. This is for your.
Yeah. And so just a little point of clarity there. So it's actually, the website is really just the marketing, go download the app portal. Okay. But it's really the app that we're focused on. And we think that, basically our general point of view on content is that everything is coming through your phone. So it's like, even if you're watching it, even if, people like to watch Netflix on TV, but there's still a huge portion of people that are just watching it on their phone. So everything is coming through this device that we're all addicted to. And so as one of the kind of revelation moments for us in this process is we initially started off thinking, oh, well, the best version of the experience is the iPad version. I think that's, kind of the general thinking. And it's like the larger the screen, the better, it's art, all that stuff. But we had this moment of realization where like, but 90% of people are going to read it on the phone. So instead of treating the phone like the afterthought, what if we treated the phone as the main experience? Like, this is the thing. And so that was a kind of shifting point as we went through that process.
And it was the Webtoon thing, as you were saying. It was like that. Yeah. I think they pioneered. Great, I'm going to make it work on this vertical thing, and that is the primary delivery.
That makes sense.
And so it was oh wait, it actually does work, but we think we can do it better.
Exactly.
That makes total sense. I think I did, because I've been doing this like webcomic stuff on and off in between work for 4 years now. Yeah. And while doing it, I've tried to do a lot of Webtoon stat analysis using other people I know's numbers and stuff. Yeah, most people are reading on the phone. It's like a 70% minimum on the phone. It's crazy.
Yeah.
And you look at the success of Webtoons. What was it, Eben? 100?
9 billion views last year.
Yeah, it's insane. And like they pulled in. I read the Naver Korean American, the report on their public, like, I forgot what you call it, where you give your investors the asset report or whatever for like last quarter, and it's like 140 million they're pulling out of the US. And if two of their services are Lalin and Webtoon, they're pulling money from one of them.
Yeah, right. Oh yeah. Yeah, and if that's actually, I hadn't seen that. If that's just the US, then they're the majority of their business is outside of the U.S., so that's even more impressive.
Amazing.
Yeah, we're coming for you, Webtoons.
Soon the king will be toppled, hopefully.
If you don't mind, let me just add one last little note in there. So yeah, I mean, I think that to underline one of the things that Adam said, like, we made this initially because it was the thing that we wanted and it didn't exist. So like, as creators, we were like, we want to do these, several things with this series. We think this is the way that comics should work. Is there something out there that does that? There's not. So I guess we have to build it. And that was where it started. And then as we got further into it, I was like, great, we think this solves a lot of the problems and pain points that other creators have too. Let's make it a business.
Okay, no, that makes total sense. I think where I want to approach now is, so a lot of the people, when I was gathering questions for this, a big question I got was, why are they starting their own service? That sounds very expensive. And I guess I do want to understand, is like, would it be fair to say that a lot of your cost is mostly just all of the hosting software, not all of the hosting hardware, and not really like...
I mean, the majority has been development and production of content. So, I mean, basically we are a startup, so we're running very lean. We're fortunate in that we have a combined skill set that allows us to actually we've done a lot of the heavy lifting up to this point. It's like part of my background is also in app development, and like, I've worked on mobile gaming and, that kind of stuff. So it's like, there's a lot of kind of like how to do it that we know how to do. And then we've brought in some other people as we've needed them to kind of flesh out different pieces of that skill set. But we've kept it very lean and really focused on, trying to solve what we think are the bigger problems for ourselves and then for other creators as well, in trying to find a way to make something that makes more sense for at least a large, portion of the makers out there.
That's also why you went for the monthly subscription as well, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I think a current complaint in the I would prefer to say the zeitgeist would be a lot of Webtoon readers are currently complaining about like hey, why are you making us pay for old content? Because they put a money barrier on a lot of old content that's popular. Why are you making us pay for old content? I don't like buying coins. But if they have a subscription, they know what they're going to be getting every time. I think for a lot of people, that's valuable.
Exactly. We always like the idea of the subscription model very much, kind of looking at kind of, okay, if Webtoons is YouTube, what can we be? We're HBO. Like we can, high quality bar, curated content, more focused on just being as impressive as possible from the content standards, basically.
Okay, and
so
that's
setting a very high bar and enjoying, and that will retain, like, have people come and subscribe, and then retain those subscribers because there's a constant feed of this.
Of course, stuff, especially with the creators you got. Jason Brubaker. I don't follow a lot of names because I'm very bad at remembering anyone's names, but his name was like the first thing that my friend was like, you need to go look at this.
Well, and he got the Eisner Award with Wellview. Like his series is fantastic.
He's good at what he does. And like, you guys seem to be looking for a lot of high quality creators. That's great. You guys are telling me you have some experience. You worked in film, you worked in app development, game development, fellow game developer. Nice to meet you.
Yes. Nice to meet you.
Did you work in the traditional comics industry? Like, did you work with Big Three, DC, Marvel, Image? How much work did you do with them? Kind of stuff.
So I'll take that. So I grew up, total child of the 90s, comic scene. The weekly trek to the comic store was something I look forward to, every week. And so, there was a moment, I'm going to take a slightly long roundabout answer to this, but there was a moment growing up where, like, indie comic scene was really exploding with Ninja Turtles and the black and white boom. And then, of course, Image was a huge, influence on me. So I grew up wanting to be a comic artist. That was my total focus, as a young person. I went to art school. I'm going to art school to come out being a comic artist. I had a chance, and this is kind of a defining moment of right before I went to college. This was when Malibu and Image had just split off, and Malibu offered me a series like right before I went to art school. And so I had to decide, like, am I going to do this thing that I've been working for this whole time, or am I going to go to school? And I ultimately decided to go to school. And then a weird thing happened while being at art school. I realized I had no interest in drawing monthly comics. So I've been a lifelong comics fan, but I'd kind of gotten away from the industry and started a branding and media agency right out of school. And so I ended up doing a lot of commercial illustration and design work. We were in the early days of Flash animation on the web. So, we were doing like 3D cars screeching across, animated screens for, Volvo and stuff like that. And all kinds of different cool projects at that time. But as Adam said, when we came together and became friends and started working together, the realization and the reignition of kind of the love of wanting to make content and tell stories specifically was kind of the driving force behind all of that. And so that is what ultimately led to the Boondock Saints comic series. And now is what brought me back into the actual comics industry. And so by putting that together, it was kind of a full overview of what was going on in comics, because not only did we have to go get the rights and find the publisher and put the creative team together and actually produce the book, but it was working with Diamond to get distribution into the bookstores, and then it was doing the convention circuit all over the US with the actors from the films, which is amazing. So we had this like really kind of crash course over the course of about a year of like the full cycle of publishing in comics, and at a high profile enough level for us to really see, more, I mean, certainly from an indie perspective, but at a level that was getting a lot of attention and where we could really see the dynamics of all of that. And so I came out of that really, as Adam and I kept talking and thinking about this, it was like, that was amazing. And there's so many things that are broken about the traditional comics industry. And that was a big part of what kind of pushed us down this road. So
how was working with Diamond, by the way?
A whole interesting set of challenges. And this is what's interesting. I can only imagine what a nightmare it is for people that weren't working with a popular, franchise that had the support of, pre-Walking Dead Norman Reedus and Sean Patrick Flannery. And we were doing signings in Barnes & Noble that would get a decent crowd because of the draw of the actors and the director.
Emerald City Comic Con. It was around the It was around the bloody third floor. It was amazing.
Yeah, I mean, we were getting more, our lines were longer than a lot of, bigger quote unquote bigger, names in comics because of that draw, because of this rabid fan base. So, I mean, we got this experience that most indies don't get. And so I can only imagine what a nightmare it is, for people that don't have that kind of, thing. And so, it really motivated us to start looking at, we care about telling stories that we want to tell. We know a lot of people that make comics are making it for the love of it because they have these stories that they want to tell. And this model, it's great if you're Marvel, DC, Image, or Dark Horse at that point. But it kind of sucks if you're anybody else.
Exactly.
I really love the line "Dark Horse" at that point.
Well, that was still the Hellboy Sin City time. So
it was such a revealing line. It's good to know you have the experience. It's good to know you've worked with the worst, and I'd say the worst, some of the worst, and some of the best of what the industry had to offer. So that's why you're on the web. But okay, this is the question I think I have, and I have this question for a lot of different platforms, because lately there are a lot of platforms, webcomic platforms popping up.
Sure.
Especially with a lot of them licensing work from Korea, which you're not doing, at least as far as I know. So do you think you guys are coming in this fully serious? This is no grift, right?
No, absolutely not.
Absolutely not.
I say this for many reasons, but it's just because we have had a lot of grifters.
Yes. Oh no. Bring the hard hitting questions. We're ready.
Oh yeah. No, seriously. Oh yes.
Pulling no punches. We'll take it.
We've had a lot of them in the industry. We've had a lot of people come take steal content through rights usage, take people's money. Even if we leave comics, we just talk about the internet as a whole. YouTube with the whole MCNs, multi-channel networks, we're just skimming people's money off. So the question I think a lot of creators will have is, why should I go to you? What service do you have that's good for me? And also, as a person, are you going to take something from me that you shouldn't? That's how people. I think that's how a lot of people are viewing it. They're being very careful.
So I mean, Eben, do you mind if I take the first part of it?
Yeah, go for it.
Chime in obviously later, but
it's
I think fundamentally, and there's a couple of things. Fundamentally, we are creators ourselves, and so we kind of pass everything through. How would we feel if we were on the other end of this deal? Fundamentally, that's our approach. And we've certainly, as creators, been in situations where the deal has been favorable and we've walked away from that deal, and we know exactly why. So that now, when we were putting our contracts together with the creator team that we have, it was very, very consciously what is appealing to them, what makes this the best it can be for them, and of course allow us to grow and expand and do everything we need to do. But the bigger we can kind of build this pie, the better it's going to be for everyone involved. So to that end, I think one of the things that really sets us apart is we are adopting a kind of more of a Spotify revenue share model with the creators that we work with.
Yeah.
So that essentially it's 50% of the revenue that comes into the company. Half of it goes into a creator pool, and that money is then divided up based on readership. So if we've got a million page views in a month, let's say, and you've just come out with a new Boondock Saints comic and you've accounted for 250,000 of those, then great. A quarter of that revenue pool goes to you, but then everything else is based up. So if you're on the low end of that and you've got a few hundred, great, you're getting something out of that. But because we're able to also, because it's all app-based and because it's all digital, creators can tap into their own fan bases very, very directly. So, deep link, they've got a huge presence on wherever, YouTube, Instagram, whatever, deep link straight into your series on our app. That means you have some control to your marketing in a way that you just never had with the traditional comics business.
That is very true. Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. And so just one addition to that. So I think, as Adam said, I mean, we put everything through the lens of, would we want this deal? And we actually fight with our attorney about that at times well, this would be better for you guys. And we know, but we want to make sure we're, taking care of the people that we're working with. Because at the end of the day, I mean, this is an interesting way of contexting it. We actually look at a lot of this business like the customer is the creator. And we can work together with the creators to serve the reader. But if we're doing our job, we're making the best possible set of tools, the best set of experiences, the best storytelling opportunity, and the best way to monetize, for the creators that we're working with. And if that doesn't work, this business doesn't work. So, I mean, that's really fundamentally the way that we look at it. Like we can't take stuff from the creators that we're working with and expect to be around in a year. Right. And we intend to be around for a decade or, multiple decades. Like we want this to grow into a big entertainment business. It's not just about, let's get some people on here and grab some cash. Frankly, we've got better things to do.
I'm not going to lie to you. That's kind of relieving to hear. Like, honestly, I'll be honest with you. Cause I was worried. I think we're all a little bit worried right now. Cause, especially with what's going on right now,
Funny how the general paranoia level the general anxiety level has increased for some strange reason over the last few months.
Absurdly, we're all just worried for reasons. But we're all worried, especially a lot of my creator friends, because this is what they want to do with their lives, and they don't know if they can trust the next person or service they go to with their work.
Well, I just saw a story on YouTube, on Facebook, which you may have seen, which is, a very well-known comic creator who got approached by someone that was like, hey, we're making covers for GQ. And, signed a contract, and she did 6 or 7 gorgeous illustrations, and then found out that it was all a scam, and that the people that had, approached her had actually signed up, a bunch of other professionals with the promise of, this money for doing these illustrations. And they were just taking the illustrations and running. And it's like, number one, that doesn't compute in my brain. But number two, it's like, of course, like when that happens to you, then, the next day it kind of ruins it for the rest of us that are trying to do something.
Yeah, it really does.
Legitimate. It's like, what the hell?
A lot of people are afraid, especially I think they use the service called Tapas. I hope the CEO doesn't see this, because I have an interview with him in a few minutes. And I hope he doesn't get mad at me. But there's a service called Tapas, and they've changed a lot of their own website rules and website systems and how things look, and it seems to have affected their creator base very negatively.
Yeah.
And
interesting.
I would and it's just, for them, they feel like they're not being listened to. And I know egos are egos, and people will always be always feel like that, no matter how big a company is. But it's just, it's evident that they weren't even thought about. And I don't want, and I would really hope that another person coming isn't doing that same, ignore the creators. Well, we can do whatever we want.
Yeah. I mean, I hope you hit him with that question, because I think that sounds like something that needs to be addressed. Not for Tapas specifically, but as we talk to a lot of, as we brought creators on board, we talk to everyone individually. So it's not like a form that you fill out and there's no automated sign up. Like everyone that comes on to Macroverse is someone that we've had a conversation with, that we've looked at the work together. We've talked about what they want to do, what we want to do. Like, is this a good fit? So, it is curated. We treat it a lot more like, if you were developing television or something like that, like we're in this together. We want to make it as big of a success together as we possibly can. Yeah. And I think, as we talked to people initially, the biggest complaint that we heard about Webtoons, and it's probably extends to Tapas as well, is that it's very hard to quantify like what's the actual value of my content on this platform. How does the revenue actually work? Like, there's, even though they try to say, oh, it's ad sharing and all that stuff, it's like it's murky. It's murky at best.
Especially because those websites only actually count US page views for some reason, right? Which really affects a lot of creators, because they're like, I have 100,000 likes on my chapter, but I only got 70,000 views this month. What does that mean?
Right. Yeah. Right. How's that possible? Exactly. So it's those kinds of practices that we think, are wrong. And that, it's like, you have to, I think one of the things that makes what we're trying to do more appealing as well is that we feel like, especially from an independent creator standpoint, like you are putting your heart and soul into this. And so, most of the people that we're working with, they're willing to do the work. Like, nobody's saying like, I don't want to work to build an audience or to gain success with this, or, create the best thing that I can create. So we want to provide tools that allow you to do that, that can, do the thing that you're already trying to do, but do it better and make more from it. And so, one of the things that we've done to try to address that is, we're very transparent with the way that we share data. We're building tools on the back end so that, it's not just about page views. It's like, you can actually, we're not there yet, but the tool set that we're building is like, you'll be able to see like, oh, someone stopped reading on tap 37 on chapter 6, and that's where the majority of the audience is dropping off. Is there something that I can do about that in the story? You'll be able to see like, oh, I got, this many people reading through episode 4 continuously, but then, they from that point, they went and they bought a t-shirt. So like we're building tools to facilitate, other types of transactions that support the creator's endeavor. So it's really looking at it holistically. It's not just about like, put your stuff up and let's hope it works. It's like, how do we help you build this business that you're already trying to build? And how do we do it in a better, smarter way that we can all benefit? And then ultimately the industry can benefit, because I really believe we'll raise all of our ships together. That's a piece that's kind of missing in the indie landscape right now.
That is a good point. I think on the topic of tap rating, I'm going to pull that out from the way you just said. Okay. So this is one of the questions I got. Actually, there's 2 questions I got from other creators, which I'm supposed to ask you. One of them,
I love it. I love that you like talk to this. That's fantastic.
I got yelled at. I was like told, you got to ask this question. Ask this question. In the conversation of the tap rating format, a lot of the creators I talk to are like, well, we already make content in the scroll format, or I already make content in the page format, although the page format one was a lot fewer people. And like, how am I going to do the tap thing? Where are they? Like they're looking for like, they look in and they're like, can I see requirements? They want to understand a little bit more about how it works. I don't know if you guys have a page already for that. Like, it just explains, this is how big a tap page is, how we format it, that kind of thing.
Yeah. So two things there, and I'll hand part of this off to you, Adam, as well. But two things there. So one is, because we're not YouTube, we're not open to everybody, for better or worse. So there is we are playing our cards a little bit close to our vest intentionally about how we make this stuff, and that'll start to open more and more as more and more content gets developed. Obviously, we have a lot of internal conversations, and actually would love feedback from people on how much desire is there to kind of see more of the process and the magic that goes into it, so to speak. So I think there is a sort of quite frankly, there's just sort of a business conversation of like, how much do we want to keep what we're doing slightly mysterious, and how much do we want to make it open? And there's probably a good middle ground there. And at some point, it probably just makes sense for it all to be open. But that's an ongoing, conversation. And then, I think from the creative side, we felt like, again, sort of looking at the different ways of optimizing for the phone, that the thing that we could do, what would be the benefit of having another Tapas and Webtoons competitor, first of all? Like, those things already exist. So if you want to make stuff that does that, do that. So we thought, number one, what would be interesting and different, but also number two, we genuinely believe it's a better reading experience, that you can do things with the storytelling that you just can't do in that scrolling format. And so the way we tend to talk about it with creators is that you're really doing 2 things. Number one, and most importantly, you're adding the element of time. So when you think about your story going from point A to point B, you could do that in 3 taps, or you could do it in 30 taps. And that's going to dramatically change the experience of how the reader has that consumption of that moment. So there are things you can do in the storytelling that are just radically different and engaging in a way that just scrolling through a page or reading through a PDF, it just doesn't deliver in the same way. Yeah. And the second thing, and this is the thing that's been the most interesting from some of the creators that we've been working with who are making new material, is that you get the chance to treat every tap like a page turn traditionally. So you can land a joke or a jump scare or a surprise in a way that is literally impossible scrolling or
honestly
flipping.
I think I said that to Jay when he was showing me the app, because I used the app for a bit around stuff, and I really like the tap. I think the only thing I didn't like, and it's the thing that Jay and I have a constant argument about, is about sideways. Like, we call them sideways panels. So whenever in Webtoon, if you have a really big panel, some people, instead of, because it can't fit horizontally, they flip it. I despise those. But on your format, they're like a tap to go across thing. Yes. And I was always hoping, I personally wanted it to be like a a flick, but I didn't really. That was the only thing I wasn't into, but it's not a big deal. That doesn't even used often. So
we definitely, it's funny because we approach those big panels, because obviously the beauty of the big kind of double page spread absolutely is something that works in that wide format in a way that you're not going to get vertically on a phone. Yeah. However, how we approach it is kind of coming back to some of the filmmaking that we are both in, obviously ensconced in, is essentially you're panning across the scene. So we kind of approach especially with original material, we're approaching it more like you're creating almost like you're creating a film of some kind. It's like, okay,
no, I
here's
get
the coverage, here's the thing. And I think the other thing the tap through allows us to do, Eben touched on it briefly, but it is you can do dialogue in a way that you simply cannot effectively do in any other format. Because it's so simple and it's so minimal. It's like, balloon, 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 balloon. So you can do a joke that'll build and then have a punchline that's great. Or you can have, very, very simply extend the drama of a scene. And, I think that, you can dig into stuff with dialogue in a way, in our format, in a way that just doesn't work elsewhere.
Yeah.
Well, shout out to Brian Michael Bendis. This is his dream format. He just doesn't know it yet.
I really did like the tap format so much.
People who like to draw, who like to write 9-panel grids of dialogue, but
I'm so used to the Webtoon, but I really did like the tap. Most of the tap worked for me. It was just that one thing.
Great. Great. Yeah. Yep.
And I think for a lot of people that works. It's because I was saying it to Jay in the conversation that day, why aren't, this looks like a wonderful way to put a really good jump scare or show a really cool panel. It's going to take a lot of work, but it's there. And I think it's there.
Just the last final thing on what you asked before about the formatting. So what we do and is for anyone that we do kind of invite onto the platform after we've connected, we work with them. So there's a process that we go through of we've got a set of templates. There's very standardized kind of starting points for everything, and we basically kind of work with you or work with them through the first episode or two, and then you're off and running. You know what you're doing. It's all pretty easy to do. And even the adaptation process, it may look like it's a lot, and it does take a little bit of time, but it's not crazy. So, we're bringing stuff over that's been in print. We're bringing stuff over that's been on Webtoons and adapting it to the tap-through format. And there's a pretty standard way that we've, figured out to do that. So it's not as intense as it might initially
look.
Yeah.
That's wonderful. The second question I was yelled at to ask, and this is literally this is last night. I was told to ask this question
in the pub while you were drunk. That's great. That's
that's from the pre-conversation.
But in the last night, someone asked me because so Tapas has did you guys know what Discord is? Tapas has a Discord server, and a lot of Webtoon creators have a Discord server. And I think someone was talking to me, and they said they knew someone that works with you, and they said that you guys don't use Discord for working. And they find that to be, that personally, not the actual person that's working with you, the person who asked me said they find that to be terrifying because they can't work with anything else. And as a programmer now, that's what I use. A lot of my own work goes through there. So I personally understand it. But I was wondering, is there a reason, or is this just because old habits die hard? What is it?
It's not, there's no real reason. I think it's actually more a function of how we've run our own creative business, for the past decade prior to this. So, I mean, anyone that knows it, the main tool that we use is web software called Basecamp, which is just project management, coordination software. And so, part of it is we've tried to make things, we have no objection to Discord, but we tend to run everything through Basecamp, and then we try to just let people work the way they work. So if you want to put stuff together, if you're working with a team of people that are using Discord, use Discord. If you want to, put stuff together all in Photoshop and then bring it into our system that way, that's great. If you use Clip Studio, great. We want you to work the way that you know how to work. Okay. And then we kind of just coordinate everything through Basecamp.
I only didn't say the word Basecamp because I didn't want to specifically, in case only 2 people knew. I didn't want to the person who got me this information.
No, everybody's on there.
It's all good.
Okay, we're gonna get into the heavy topic.
Good.
Prepare yourselves. Take a drink of water. Ready yourself.
Coffee for me. Yes.
So there's a story that I read on Twitter, and it's from a creator who worked on Batgirl. She talks about how she's writing for Batgirl. DC has a Bat Family convention that goes on with a lot of the Batman, Nightwing writers. Yeah. She's a writer for Batgirl. She doesn't get invited. They make decisions without her being there, and they literally just dump it on her and make her rewrite months and months of work. I personally see that as not only a gender bias, but a bias towards people who are working beneath you or in a position of less power. And that is a very common industry conversation of using people with less money, that earn less money or with less clout. And that tends to usually happen to a lot of women, a lot of social minorities, a lot of racial minorities. How are you guys approaching this in such a way that not only is your general workspace, I know you're a startup, you're lean, you only got maybe 10 people tops. I've never seen most startups only have 7 people. I know. How are you addressing that? Less. Even less. Great.
Even less. Yeah. So we're not only a startup, but we work remotely. So honestly, it's Adam and I, and then we have a third co-founder, which is a friend of ours that we've also known for a decade, who comes from the video game world. So I'll just give him a pat on the back momentarily, but he started Disney's mobile gaming division. So he kind of brings that perspective to what we're doing. He's
the reason I spent so much money on Disney Infinity figures. That explains a lot.
Again, blame him. So there's the 3 of us, and then it's a handful of contractors and collaborators, and that's really the whole company right now. So we've been able to kind of spin everything up, very, very lean in that regard.
I guess my thing is just how are you addressing, your hiring policy, HR stuff, that kind of stuff.
I think
so. Go ahead, Adam. Yeah,
I was going to say. I think just before, but to speak to that, because I think having, Eben's run his own company basically his whole life and has been, has grown and employed people and whatever there. My experience was more in the film production end of things. So I started out as a production assistant at the bottom of the ladder and did a whole lot of, I think. My longest day was I remember seeing sunrise, sunset, sunrise on the same work day. I made $100 for it.
Was that Tarantino?
No, it was Frankenheimer actually, but it was Frankenheimer, which was amazing. But yes, so having been my very much our philosophy, and certainly mine as well, is having been kind of on the bottom end of that, and definitely been in situations where there's been a lot of trickle down abuse. There's been a lot of just taking advantage. Obviously not on a kind of ethnic level, but on a certainly on a kind of hierarchical level. That it absolutely, as the PA, you are everybody's whipping boy, and that is not great. And so as I rose through the ranks in the entertainment industry, versus second assistant, now first assistant. And when we direct, when we put teams together, I am always very, very cognizant. It's similar to our approach to the deal-making side of things, where we try and look at it as creators, and would we like this as a creator? We approach very much the same thing of, Wade, I remember what it was like being treated like crap. How would I feel if I was being treated this way? Great, then we're not going to do those things. And so we're very, very cognizant of how we treat people, how we work with people, and building a true kind of team of people, because it goes, back to what we said before, we can't do anything unless the creators are happy, and then the audience won't come unless the creators are producing good stuff, which tends to happen when they're happy and when they're motivated. What's the benefit of being a dick in this situation?
Well, I also think this, and this feels like it's relevant to kind of what's happening in the world right now in general, as well as we talk about, systemic racism and all the things that are happening at a level that I think myself and a lot of people are seeing a kind of more bird's eye view of like, wait a second, like we've just gotten used to this. It doesn't mean it's okay.
Yeah.
And so I think there's a lot of opportunity to kind of evaluate not just the kind of obvious things of like, hey, how many, people of color or women are in this conversation, or in this creator group, or, whatever different, buckets you want to put people in. But, it's also, I think, looking at, something that Adam and I have always done as creators ourselves, is like, it's just boring to write and create stories about white guys. Like there's a bunch of those out there. So like write about women, write about people of color. It's like, it's just more interesting. And then as we've had the chance to build, teams of creators, not just for Macroverse, but in the other projects that we've done. It's like, why do we want more voices that sound like ours? Like, it's boring. It's stupid. So, it's been very intentional for us to go like, we want other perspectives in here. And I think that, anyone that's sort of not looking at it that way, in my opinion, it's like you're getting in your own way creatively. And I think there's a level of insecurity there that's like, why, like, empower somebody else to tell their story. That's going to be way more interesting than trying to dictate, some sort of overarching point of view on things. So a lot of the things that have been the most interesting creatively have come from people that are, number one, not us, but also have radically different backgrounds. Yeah. And I honestly believe it's like, we tend to think we're pretty good at what we do, but I also have a pretty strong sneaking suspicion that the thing that's going to be kind of the real breakout hit on Macroverse is going to come from somebody else. So, the more we can empower, again, other people to tell the stories they want to tell and, approach things in the way that makes sense to them and is, authentically their voice, the better that's going to be for everybody. Yeah.
It's actually really cool.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's ridiculous in this time, that those things are happening. I mean, you're someone who's working on the Bat family and at DC, and you're not getting invited to the conversation about what's happening in that world. That seems completely counterproductive on every level.
It's insane.
And when I think for us, like when we, our original series, Dead Town, working, we do tend to, because we kind of know we're writing to this format we have, and because we tend to approach things from this kind of cinematic, more of a directorial point of view, for want of a better word, we tend to be with our scripts for our original material, tend to be pretty precise in terms of, hey, we want this and this shot and this face change, and here's a dialogue and here's how to, like, we tend to be pretty specific with that stuff. And at the same time, our artist, fantastic artist, Stephen Perkins, will then go away and he'll come back with questions. Hey guys, actually, I know you wrote this, but what about this? How do you feel? And then it becomes this fantastic collaboration between the three of us where, sometimes like, what? No, we really do want to be this way because of X, Y, Z. Fantastic. That's what happens. Other times like, well, no, great. God, your idea is much better. Let's go do that instead. And that's not our own material. So if it's someone else that is their material working with, like, great, we'll have suggestions. We'll be in that kind of showrunner type of position. But ultimately this is your material. Yeah. Like we don't want to take this stuff,
I think, I think we've always looked at our role too, when we are working with other people is, it's like, we want to make everything that we're working on the best that it can be, but that doesn't mean it's the best because it doesn't need to be the thing that we think that is the best it can be. So it's more about, I think this is a real skill set that I think a lot of people, maybe don't spend enough time working on developing, is that if you're going to work with other creative people, the job is help them solve the problem their way. Help them find a way that gets the note handled. It's not, I think there's a problem here, here's how you have to fix it. It's more of here's something that's not working for me. Let's look at that together, and how do you think we should solve that? And finding a way to kind of empower that person, to find a solution that they're happy with. I mean, Adam and I fight like crazy sometimes when we're working on stuff together. But the result of that is always better than if we didn't go through that process. So
of course, I get what you guys are saying. I think another thing I want to just touch on is a few things actually.
Please.
One of them was in a lot of creative spaces, there's like a weird social hierarchy that forms. I know, of course, you're paying people based on page views. People are weird, and they think that is somehow a measure of a person, which has always been strange to me. I know a lot of creators just normally who feel apprehensive about talking to people who are like bigger or have bigger audiences. And like, I feel like when you have a service where it's kind of, closed off, the creators would communicate with each other, of course, because they know that they all work together. But also I think it could introduce a weird hierarchical, standpoint where like if Jason asks some person to make, I'm not saying he's doing this, by the way, but if he asks some person to like, draw, to help him with some drawing, the person will do it because he feels he owes Jason. And I don't know how you would like address that. I personally already, I have a community. I find that hard to address with just community members who have no power, let alone, someone with an audience. Yeah.
No, I think it's a great question, but no, Eben, sorry, you take this. Go for it.
No, it's a great question. I mean, I think that, that one I think is such a case by case kind of scenario on some level that, I think we would have we do have the kind of broad point of view of like, as Adam said, don't be a dick. But secondly, I think, there's a bit of a case by case, question around that. It's like, I've been on both sides of that particular equation where, someone that I've looked up to has given, and now the way it has come across to me has given me the opportunity to participate in something that they were doing. And I wanted to do that. And I was happy that I got to do it regardless of whatever the compensation was. I've been on the other side of that equation where, I have been asked to do stuff that I didn't want to do and felt like I shouldn't have to do and wasn't compensated the way that I thought I should have been for it. So, I've seen, I've felt both of those things. So I think it can look the same, but feel radically different to the people that are involved. And so I think there's some elements of that in there. But I think, we just don't want to abuse people in any way. And I think that a larger context to what you're talking about is something that, Adam and I talk actually quite a bit about and is very present for me as I've gotten older and hopefully wiser in my career, is that I know for myself, I assign a lot of my value to external. I have a tendency to assign a lot of my kind of value and self-esteem to external measures. So whether that's how much money am I making or how much, how many people are responding to the things that I'm doing, like that's just built into my psyche. Like I'm aware that it's there. I see that it happens and I spend intentional, kind of cycles in my brain to try to unwind that, because I think as I've gotten older and wiser and more experienced, what I've really tried to steer my own mentality towards is being in love with the process, being in love with the actual activity of doing the thing, of making the thing, not being attached to the external results of that thing. And so I think, that is my general advice to all creators, is that it's so easy to get wrapped up in especially in this kind of social media, serotonin hit that we've gotten also addicted to. That it's like, it's not about, the number of likes. It's about doing good work. It's about feeling good about the work that you're doing. And it's about consistency. And if you're doing something that you love, that, other people start to respond to, it's one way or another, it's all going to work out. And if that one doesn't, do the next one. And I think that's the mentality that I think we all have to, in my opinion, kind of have to, try to push ourselves towards. If someone else is doing great, what can we learn from that person? What did they do? It's like when you look at a Kickstarter that's gotten, hundreds of thousands of dollars, it's like, yeah, there's something great about that project usually, but the other question is like, what lessons can I take from that can influence the next thing that I'm going to do? So I think it's, it's trying to, I think, we live in a very status oriented world right now, but I think it's healthier for all of us to try to take a step back from that, to try to, see where those things affect our own points of view, our own mentality, the way that we approach life in general, let alone these creative endeavors, and try to find the healthy balance of, what really matters, what the external validation does, both positively and negatively. And how to, move forward from there. I don't know. It's a weird answer to your question, but that's the way
honestly, your answers are really interesting. So it's fine. I think the last one is real. So you say you like to let the creators work on their own terms. A lot of creators, so you're letting them do their own thing, but of course you're just doing a show running role. How much moderation is going into this? Like, I understand creative vision and freedom, but on Webtoon right now, there's literally a comic about chess. I'm not going to name the name of the comic. It's a comic about chess. And it's about chess, but the pieces are anthropomorphized. And there's literally a line in the first chapter where it talks about how can the blacks be so horrible to all the whites.
Oh,
and they didn't mean it that way. The person doesn't speak English as their first language. So they just messed up. I need to cover up for them really quick. They just messed up. But it is clear that there is there's minimal moderation. Like, it's, how would it be approached? Do you look at someone's work and say, maybe don't put that in, even if you really want to? Or are you going to just be like, creative vision?
I think it's always a balancing act. Like, so I think it's funny. I've spent a lot of my kind of professional career in doing comedy, and a lot of kind of R-rated, like I've been in the kind of Seth Rogen camp for a while with this kind of hard R-rated comedy that'll, some of it is a little offensive, of course, because they're pushing buttons. So it's that kind of And on the flip side, how do you make sure that you're not being insensitive and deliberately offensive? And so I think there is that balancing act in there. But I think it's the benefit of us being fully curated is we are able, everything that comes in is read, everything has gone through. And then we actually, I don't think we've faced anything yet that has been like, oh, that's a little much, we should tone that down.
No.
But our barometer is set pretty finely in terms of, okay, this is acceptable, this might not be. Could you rephrase this about this? The storyline, is this kind of wandering off somewhere that's a bit funky? Okay, let's, so there's, I'd say again, it's the kind of curation rather than editing, I would say.
Okay. Yeah, that's the
and I think it is also the difference of, the way that we contextualize, Webtoons as YouTube and what we're doing as HBO, and that, no one's paying attention at Webtoons. It's just like you put your stuff up and you hope something happens for the most part. So, I think as Adam was saying, it's like, I think, we're in a different position and we're upfront from the beginning that it's like, this is a partnership. And so, this is something we're going to do together. And we're going to benefit if it works, and we're going to not benefit if it doesn't work. And we're going to do the best we can and make it, something great. But, at the end of the day, also, it's like we do have a clause in our contract, and it's something that, some people will disagree with. But if something is blatantly offensive or racist or, homophobic or, whatever those, the things that we care about as humans, if something crosses those lines unabashedly, it's not going up. Like we're just we're not interested in being in that side of the content world. So, some people will hate that, but that's the type of business we want to build.
That's honestly, a lot of the answers have been really refreshing for one, and also stopped me from worrying as much as I was earlier. I worried a lot. I thought I was going to hear some questionable things. Not because of you, just because in general, that's what I expect.
I think that's totally fair.
Yes. Hey man, 2020. Yes.
Yeah, it's been a year. It's been a year. So I've just I'm not really keeping my hopes up for anything. Anything you guys want to say last minute? Any information? Any, whatever you want to drop for people to...
Yeah, I mean, I think the only thing I would say is I hope people will check out the app. So if you haven't had a chance to, see what we're doing on Macroverse, I hope people will find it and download it on either iOS or Android. It is a 7-day free trial, so you can jump in and sample a bunch of stuff and, see if you like what we're doing. And if you do, we hope you'll stick around and tell people and help us grow this thing, because I think there really is... it's double-sided. I think there is a genuine business opportunity here as a broad scale. And I also think there's a real opportunity to empower kind of the next generation of independent creativity in a way that makes sense, both from a creative standpoint and from a business standpoint. And I think that's really the hole in the market that we're trying to fill, and the thing that we want to provide for ourselves and for the other creators. I get long-winded, but I'm going to let myself for a second here. I've been kind of reconnecting in a weird way through a series of podcasts and things I've run into recently, just with my own formative years as a cartoonist and as a creator, and kind of growing up in comics, and kind of remembering, honestly, kind of how exciting it was at in that time frame, like in that early 90s indie boom. Like there was stuff every week that you didn't know was going to be at the comic store that was, refreshing and totally unique and different. And that got me so excited. And I realized like that feels like it's missing from the market right now. In a lot of ways, like where's the real experimentation? Where's the real creative, just like, let me try something, like, just do something new and raw and different just because you want to. Like that, even in the broad scale of something like Webtoons, like that feels like there's a real, tone to what Webtoons is, or, what webcomics have become. So it's like, where can we kind of really engender that kind of real creative expression and explosion of just like doing stuff because we're, we have this ability to put stuff out in the world in a way that, we've never had before. And so, I'm just remembering some of that and looking back at some of that work and listening to interviews with some of those creators. And also, from a history lesson point of view, seeing like where that went away. And it really was when Diamond became a monopoly, when they were no longer able to solicit books. So a huge portion of their income went away because they couldn't monetize their back catalog. Like, kind of looking at all that stuff of like, that history, that progression, and the collapsing of the direct market in a lot of ways because of that. And nothing has risen up to kind of, give that a new home, give that part of the comics world a new home. And so this is my invitation to anyone out there that, wants to do that kind of stuff. Like, bring it to us. Let's look at it. Let's talk about it. Let's, figure out a way to make it what you want it to be, and to make it something that can resonate with people as well. So, we're not looking for a particular genre. We're not looking for a particular style. We're just looking for good work, and we love to see it. And if you're not making stuff, then go consume stuff that other people are making. That's my little pitch here at the end. But you can find us on social media, on Instagram at Macroverse Media. That's our main social home. And then find us on the app. And we're also very, very interested in feedback from creators, from people on that are in the audience. Like, this is something we care deeply about, and we want it to be something like that works for creators in the best possible way, and that excites readers in the best possible way. So let us know what you think, the good, the bad, the ugly. We're down for all of it.
Exactly. Oh yeah. No, and just to echo that point, I think, man, the detail that the questions you brought about the app, and obviously talking to other creators that were talking about it, and like digging into what works and what doesn't work, very, very genuinely, that is fantastic. And it's where we're not precious about stuff in that way. And I think that in the same way that we don't kind of hyper control the creative process, we're also just very, very, receptive to thoughts, ideas, comments. Would that be good? Yes. This doesn't work. Great. Here's what, just play in this space. It's good. Yeah.
Yeah. Hello again. Thanks for listening. I hope you enjoyed it. Told you I'd see you on the other side. If you liked it, do give us a like and a subscribe. Check out our Patreon for content like this early. Every dollar, of course, helps us continue to make content that hopefully you enjoy. I've been Nen, Adam, Eben, and you guys have been extremely awesome. And I'll see you all on the next one.